How did your family react when you told them you wanted to live in Vietnam?
Oh,
I've been doing many interviews of foreigners in Vietnam, but today we're going to do a mini podcast session with a VidQ girl from Germany. Say hi.
hey guys.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Tony. I'm from Germany and I just arrived in Saigon 1 month ago.
Welcome.
Thank you. Currently, I'm 25.
Where in Germany are you from?
So the last 2 years I lived in Düsseldorf, which is in the west of Germany. That's where I lived, that's where I studied, and that's also where I grew up, so in the west of Germany.
Were you born and raised in Germany?
Yes, I was. So my parents came to Germany around 30 years ago, and I lived there my whole life, grew up there, and now it's the first time living in Vietnam, living abroad.
All by yourself?
Yes, exactly.
Can you speak any German for us?
Ja, hallo zusammen, ich bin Tony. Ich bin jetzt seit einem Monat in Vietnam und bin auf jeden Fall froh, hier zu sein. Did you understand?
No, I don't know German. Can you speak any Vietnamese?
Xin chào mọi người, mình tên Thảo Nhi, mình 25 tuổi và mình rất là vui được sống ở Việt Nam. Well, I feel like people who speak different languages, they don't know it for like 100%. So now I'm still learning Vietnamese.
It's better than mine, I'll tell you that. How is your Vietnamese so good? Did your parents always say only Vietnamese at home?
So they always said like, you are Vietnamese, you should speak Vietnamese at home. And growing up in Germany, I grew up in a small town where there were not a lot of Vietnamese people. I didn't really associate myself as being Vietnamese, so I always had German friends. I spoke German the whole day, so I didn't see the point in speaking Vietnamese. And now, 25 years later, I kind of regret it because my Vietnamese is not fluent. For example, when I spoke with my parents, one sentence consisted of 80% Vietnamese, 20% German. And a lot of times also only my parents understood me and other Vietnamese people not because they're kind of used to my accent.
What do you do in a day?
So I start my day at 7 to go to work. And before I go to work, I either get a bánh mì or soy. So on my way, there are a lot of street food vendors. So it's always exciting to drive past and to grab some food. And then I work from 7 until 1. And after that, most of the time, I just drive around Saigon and eat. My day actually just consists of eating, discovering new food, hanging out with friends, and going to a coffee shop. I started drinking coffee when I moved here because I guess it's pretty addicting.
Yes, coffee culture here is strong.
Yes, exactly.
You started riding a motorbike a couple days ago?
Yes, exactly 2 days ago. Yeah, I arrived 1 month ago and I thought to myself, okay, I want to learn, but I guess it's not difficult to drive, but it's difficult to go through the traffic because, I mean, people who've been to Saigon or to Vietnam know like how crazy it is, and it's kind of an organized chaos. Driving, you really realize, okay, there's kind of an order, but from the outside, you don't really see it.
Did you teach yourself how to ride a bike?
Some of my friends taught me. We went to a quiet road and then we just drove. They explained some stuff to me. And 2 weeks ago, I also went to Phu Quoc, and it's pretty quiet there in comparison to Saigon. So I also drove a little bit, and I think that's a good way to start.
Are you still scared of driving a bike?
Sometimes I'm a bit nervous, but I think it kind of feels like we are a community and we are driving together. I think everyone is kind of taking care of each other. That's how it feels sometimes on the road.
I feel like driving here, not that I've driven here, but it's intuition.
I feel like you communicate with each other. You just look into each other's eyes.
It's so weird. I haven't seen an accident yet.
What about you? So, are you thinking about driving?
I know how to ride a bike, but driving in Saigon, I'm just too chicken. I will rent a bike soon. I just need to do it because I spend more taking Grabs everywhere.
Yes.
And especially since it's been raining a lot, Grab rides are a lot more expensive.
Yes, exactly.
It's cheaper if you rent a bike.
And you save time because in the rainy season, sometimes it takes up to 30 minutes to get one.
Before we go deeper into this interview, how did we meet?
Well, social media makes it possible. Actually, a few years ago, I started planning to move to Vietnam already. And during these years, I've always watched YouTube videos about people who moved here already. And I guess the algorithm pushed your account. Or that's how I got to know about your videos. And they really helped me in just preparing to go to Vietnam and just learning about what life is here about. And then, I looked you up on Instagram, I started following you, and then suddenly I got a DM from Sky.
I was like, hey girl. And now we're here.
Yes, it's so cool. Like, I think it's not just social media that brings people together, but I feel like in Saigon, people are so open.
Very connected.
Yes, and everyone wants to just hang out. And so, for example, in Germany, I feel like you are more individualistic. So it's more about you and your goals, and you have to get things done. So I don't want to speak for the whole country or for whole of Germany, but that's what I've experienced in my area, I would say. And here I feel like it's more about community, and even though I don't know you, but if you need my help, I'm here for you. So that's what I feel like.
Same. We met 30 minutes ago in person, in real life. Both of your parents are Vietnamese?
Yes, they are.
How did they migrate to Germany from Vietnam?
So both of them migrated to Germany around 30 years ago, but separately. So they met in Germany. But before they came to Germany, both of them went to the Czech Republic first because it was easier to get into there than into Germany. And then my dad has been living there for a few years before he came to Germany. And my mom, I think she only stayed there for a few days. So the main goal was just to get into the country. And then she always tells me the story about, I think in the winter, she said, she was in a group and they, I guess, booked the group. And so they paid people to be able to get into the country. And then in the evening, they walked through the fields and just got into Germany. And like it was kind of dangerous because if someone would have found you, you would have, I guess, be kicked out of the countries. That's how she ended up in Germany. And then I think they stayed for a while in a refugee camp and then slowly got papers done, got work done. And then they met and then they got my older brother and then me.
How was your experience growing up as a VitQ in Germany?
I think like for everyone it's different, right? Even though I grew up in a Vietnamese household, I didn't have a lot of Vietnamese friends, and because I grew up in Germany, I always told myself, okay, I'm German and I don't want to have a lot of association with Vietnam and Vietnamese culture. And I think the main reason was also because of racism and discrimination. For example, when you brought your food to school or just when you were kind of the only Asian girl in the whole school, you kind of felt different, and you also felt like, okay, people kind of had certain prejudice about you because they didn't really know a lot about Vietnamese or just people of color. So I was never very proud or confident in being Vietnamese. I guess that's also one reason why I moved here, to learn more about the culture and to learn to be more proud of it.
What impact did it have on you growing up as a VitQ in Germany?
You kind of get two worlds at the same time because I feel like the cultures are different. I think there's also the beauty in it. Like you get the German culture, you get the Vietnamese culture, so it's very diverse. Yeah, and even though there's so much beauty in it, I sometimes also found it difficult because a lot of times my parents were like, you are Vietnamese, you should do this and this. And then around me were all my German friends who were treated differently from their parents or who were also raised differently. So for example, growing up, I was never allowed to sleep at my friend's place or not allowed to meet up with friends a lot, even though like we had summer holidays. And I always asked my parents, like, what should I do? Like if I don't meet up with friends, they're like, you should study.
Such an Asian answer.
So that was kind of difficult, like seeing other people around me who grew up differently and who were allowed to do a lot of things, and then having Vietnamese parents who were pretty strict about it. Kind of having the two cultures who kind of clashed. And what about you? How was it for you?
I guess growing up, I've always felt like an outcast. Still do, living in Vietnam.
6 years ago, when I came to Vietnam and I started to dream and plan about moving to Vietnam, that was also the first time where I kind of felt like, okay, I belong, because people look like you, people speak the language that you speak at home. But then 6 years later, now we live here, right? And you realize you're kind of in between, because you always get the question like, oh, where are you from? Oh, you are a foreigner. I guess it's still having like both worlds. And I think it also shows you that you can't be put in a box. So you are not just American, you are not just Vietnamese, but you are both.
Why did you decide to move from Germany to Vietnam?
So the short answer is because of food. It's just so diverse. Like when you look to the north, to the middle and to the south, the food is so different in every area of the country, and there's always so much to discover. So for example, in Germany, usually we just go to the same restaurant or kind of similar cuisine, and here, just only looking at Vietnamese food, you always find something new. That's one reason, but another reason is reconnect with the Vietnamese culture, because growing up in Germany, you learn about Vietnamese culture, you hear about it from your family, but you don't really know it, you don't really experience it. Because my Vietnamese, I'm not fluent in Vietnamese, I also feel like there's a barrier between my parents and me, because of course I grew up with them, of course I speak with them on a daily basis, but because you don't speak the same language fluently, I feel like you don't really connect on a deeper level. I really hope to learn Vietnamese here and and develop the relationship with my parents.
Are you planning on taking any Vietnamese lessons?
Yes, I will. So I will start to learn Northern Vietnamese because my mom is from Hanoi. So in the beginning I thought, okay, I'm just going to learn by everyday conversation. And I think like my Vietnamese improved a little bit already, but I really want to learn to read, to write, to understand the grammar. So I will take Vietnamese lessons soon.
This next question is from a viewer. Do you feel a sense of belonging in Vietnam? Is part of the reason why moving back to Vietnam is to have that sense of belonging?
Yes, so many communities, like Viet community, Viet Kieu community, expat community. Like there are so many options and so many chances to find your place. It's pretty normal that you won't feel like you belong everywhere. But because people are so welcoming and so open to get to know people, I think it's very easy, or you have a lot of options to feel like, okay, you belong, that's your place. But at the same time, so I just moved here 4 weeks ago, and I feel like I've gotten to know so many people. It's a difference, like knowing a lot of people or really having friends. So I think it also takes time to develop relationships.
How did your family react when you told them you wanted to live in Vietnam?
Oh, I've been planning to move to Vietnam for 6 years, so I've been able to kind of prepare them mentally. Even though my mom and my dad knew for 6 years already, they don't approve of my decision. And I think my mom is very sad. She's always like, "You're coming back, right?" And I'm like, I'm not sure yet. So my contract for now is for 1 year, and she's like, yeah, but in 1 year you will come back, right? And she hasn't been to Vietnam for 10 years, and she's actually planning to come to Vietnam soon. Yes. I think one reason is to see me.
Of course.
And also, I guess, to see the country again. So my parents don't really understand my decision. Like with parents, I mean more my mom, because my dad actually moved to Vietnam. So he's living 30 minutes away from here. When I was a child, my dad moved to Vietnam already, and I didn't really understand why would he want to move to Vietnam from Germany. And now I'm kind of walking in his footsteps.
Like father, like daughter?
Yes. But I think they also don't know how much Vietnam has changed. When I talked with my mom the other day, she was like, maybe I should come to Vietnam and to get to know the country better, because they've been living in Germany longer than in Vietnam, right? So I guess it won't be really like coming back, but it's like coming to Vietnam and learning about Vietnam again.
What's it like living in Vietnam versus living in Germany?
So I heard the phrase that should describe Saigon or Vietnam is Vietnamese people work hard, but they also play hard. In comparison to Germany, I mean, I can just speak for myself or the people around me. It was always like a 9 to 5, so always working, hustling. That was kind of the focus. Before coming to Vietnam, I really just hope that Vietnam will kind of help me to be more relaxed. And I feel like because there are so many options here to go out, to hang out with people, and yeah, they really like to socialize. And for example, like now we are sitting in a coffee shop and it's open until 10 o'clock. And in Germany, that would, like, I don't know, any coffee shop that opens.
What time do cafes close in Germany?
6 or 5. Living in Vietnam is more relaxing. I think people are very ambitious, just as you talked earlier. I think a lot of people hustle and they work, but at the same time they also know how to enjoy, how to relax, how to take it easy. So I think that's the biggest difference I've noticed in the last few weeks. I mentioned to some friends in Vietnam that I will get a, how do you call it, like an insurance for example, when I scratch someone's car. Sure. I told them, like, I will get an insurance just to be safe. And they all laughed at me because they're like, well, in Vietnam, I don't think you will need it, or you, like, people have it. So, for example, in Germany, there are a lot of rules and you also keep the rules, just very organized and I guess more strict. And here it's more chill, and I mean, there are rules and people also keep them, but it's more casual or more like...
Very laid back. Mm-hmm. What was the hardest part of being Vietnamese in Germany, and what's the hardest part being a German in Vietnam?
Oh, I think the hardest part was just racism. Feeling like people judge you because of your outward appearance, and people kind of giving you the feeling that you don't belong. Because, I mean, I grew up in Germany. I speak German as my first language, and people were always like, oh, where are you from? And like, how long are you going to stay here? So it never felt I belonged, even though that's my country.
Sure.
So I guess that's the hardest part. And also needing to explain yourself, for example, just eating Vietnamese food and inviting friends to your place, kind of needing to explain what I'm eating or why I'm eating it, and kind of feeling like, oh, you are not the norm because I guess you are different. I think that was the hardest part. And now being German in Vietnam, I try to be very like organized. I've got my rules, my appointments, my times, right? And here it's more, just as we said, laid back, more flexible. Or when you want to get things done, in Germany it's very structured, very organized. And here it just works differently. Now I'm learning to be more flexible. So, which is also helpful, which is also nice to not just have everything organized and structured.
What do you like most about living in Vietnam?
The people, yes, it's always exciting to meet new people. So Vietnamese people, but also people from all over the world. So because I've just moved to Vietnam, for me, I guess everything is so exciting. Just driving the motorbike, just looking at the Saigon River, just eating street food, sitting at blue chairs. So everything kind of feels like I'm a child, kind of discovering the world.
It's like you're in Disneyland, right?
Yes, exactly. You just look around and everything is new for you. Daily life is exciting because it's so different than in Germany.
Is there anything else you want the viewers to know about you?
Might have noticed already, I'm so excited about food. So whenever like you are in Vietnam or you want to hang out, I'm so up for it. So I really like to connect with people through food, and I guess also learn more about Vietnamese culture. Even though I'm still learning about the food and the culture, I love like getting to know people through food.
Hit her up. Any message or advice for the viewers?
I think being open towards people and also being open towards the culture. I think a lot of things don't work exactly as the way back home. Just being open, and if things don't work out the way you expected them to be, just chill. Like, I think there's the Vietnamese phrase không sao, right? Just chill, it's gonna be alright.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so fun talking with you. Tạm biệt, hẹn gặp lại.